Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, November the 6th, 2023. So, what about Halloween? Halloween was a few days ago, right? What actually is Halloween? And when is the moment? When is the magical moment when you celebrate Halloween, when the hordes of hell come in, when all the demons and everything else come pouring down here onto Earth and cause chaos and mischief and whatever else. When is that moment? Is it midnight? I mean, midnight sounds kind of okay, but what's special about midnight? So I think there's always a problem with Halloween, at least from an astrological perspective. If you're into astrology, you want precise moments. It's all about precise moments. And so Halloween has a problem. But anyway, tomorrow, November the 7th, is Halloween. It is the astronomical Halloween. It happens tomorrow. And it actually happens at a precise moment. It happens at 4:35 p.m. London time. That's when it happens. 4:35 p.m. November the 7th. That's a Tuesday. That's tomorrow. So if you're in New York, that would be 11:35 a.m. If you're in Berlin, that would be 5:35 p.m. If you're in Los Angeles, 8:35 a.m. So there's a precise time for Halloween. Remember, tomorrow it's Halloween, November the 7th. And I'll be discussing that. I'll be discussing why tomorrow is Halloween, at least from an astronomical perspective. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology for today, which is Monday, November the 6th, 2023. Okay, so as usual, I've put up a chart set for New York today, November the 6th, noon. So what is special about today's astrology? Okay, so you might notice that the moon is in very late Leo. The moon is about to move into Virgo. As far as when the moon moves into Virgo, if you're in London, the moon moves into Virgo at 7:39 p.m. So sort of early evening. If you're in Paris, Berlin, then it's an hour later. It's at 8:39 p.m. If you're in New York, moon moves into Virgo at 2:39 p.m. If you're in Los Angeles or Seattle, Portland, Oregon, then it's at 11:39 a.m. So that means that if you're in sort of East Asia, New Zealand, Australia, the moon does not go into Virgo today. It stays in Leo. All day long. Okay, so aside from that, what else is happening? There is a trine between Venus and Pluto. Venus is in Virgo. Pluto is in Capricorn. This trine, I've already talked about it. When I was talking about the astrology for the week ahead, in a video I put up, I think yesterday. So it's really about, it can be about relationships. It's about how we can gently transform relationships. I say gently because it's a trine, it's not a square. So we can do that. Venus is also about style and what we look like. Trine Pluto, we might want to change the way we come across. We might want to transform ourselves. There must be some way of doing that if we so wish. Wearing different clothes, something about our expression, perhaps something about the words we're using. So yes, we may feel we want to make a transformation in that kind of direction, and that would be fine. That may be a good idea. So if you want a change of style, now might definitely be the time to be doing it. So as far as some of the more difficult areas of today are concerned, Mars is interesting. So you can see that Mars is at 1731 Scorpio, and you can also see that the Sun is at 1401 Scorpio. So that means that Mars is at noon is about 3.5 degrees ahead of the Sun. And then look at Uranus. Uranus is at 2121 Taurus. So that means that Uranus is around 4 degrees ahead of Mars. So that means actually that if you take the Sun-Uranus midpoint, you see there's Sun and Uranus. They are moving towards an opposition aspect, but that doesn't actually happen for about a week. But we can consider what is the midpoint of the Sun and Uranus. Well, Sun is at 14 Scorpio, Uranus is at 21 Taurus, so they're about 7 degrees apart, 3.5. So the midpoint is at around 17 and a half Leo. So the midpoint is sort of 17.5 Leo Aquarius. Okay, got that? Now that means that Mars is on the Sun-Uranus midpoint. It's squaring the Sun-Uranus midpoint. So to my mind, that is pretty strong because Mars is sort of moving away from the Sun, but it's moving towards Uranus, and this is the midpoint of well, actually, sorry, Mars is not moving away from the Sun. The Sun is actually moving towards Mars. So the Sun is moving towards Mars, and Mars is moving towards Uranus. But right now, Mars is on the Sun-Uranus midpoint, squaring the Sun-Uranus midpoint. That's quite aggressive. Sun-Uranus is about can be about sort of dramatically imposing our views of the world on people. It can be about being stubborn. It can be perhaps about being revolutionary. And so Mars is on that Sun-Uranus midpoint. And so some people are going to be very strident. The revolutionary spirit is certainly going to be there, and there's not going to be much room for compromise because, Mars is in Scorpio, which is a fixed sign. So it's quite a strong Mars in its own sign, but on the Sun-Uranus midpoint, it's going to be headstrong, and it could cause a lot of trouble. Mars is also aspecting the Mercury-Jupiter midpoint. So you've got Sun and Uranus, Mercury and Jupiter. So Mercury and Jupiter. So that Mars is kind of hitting that opposition aspect. Let me just show you what I mean by showing you a 90-degree dial on that. So if we look at the 90-degree dial, I will show you what I mean. So here is, let's put Mars. Mars is, where's Mars? Mars is, I've lost Mars. Mars is here. Right, so we're going to have to move it. We're going to move Mars, right. We're going to move the pointer onto Mars. There's Mars. You can see, there's Mars. You can see the symmetry, Mercury, Jupiter, midpoint. And we can see that the Sun and Uranus are here. So you can see Sun, Uranus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Mars is right on there. So Okay, Mercury, Jupiter. Mars has got a lot to say. Mercury and Jupiter is about the principle of, it's about optimism. It's having lots to say. It's about talking with great excitement. So we've got that. So Mars it's got big ideas, wants to put them into action. But then you've got that Sun-Uranus, which is very headstrong. So some of us are going to be pretty over the top with that midpoint combination. Yes, I think we can we can accomplish quite a lot through sudden dramatic initiatives. But in certain situations, there's a danger that we take things too far. Or if it's not us, we're going to maybe notice other people taking things too far. And there's a potential for violence. Mars is the planet of violence. And on the Sun-Uranus midpoint, yes, bad things can happen. People are very tense. You can already, I don't know, you can see the tension building up, all these people, protesting about Israel and Gaza and all of this kind of stuff, and all the other protests they might have, all the other complaints they might have. Different parts of the world, people have different complaints. People get angry about different things, and so we're going to see a lot of that, and we're going to see it in terms of the people we meet. So watch out for it, and what we can do is just be aware of it. We can be aware of it not just in other people, but in ourselves. Yes, it is good to be optimistic. It's good to be able to put into action amazing initiatives, but we just do have to consider the social environment in which we're working. Okay, so that's an overview of what's happening today astrologically. What I want to do now is look at my forecast for the 12 signs for today, which is Monday, November the 6th, 2023. Aries. Mars, your ruler, is strong in Scorpio, but it is attracting a lot of trouble. The atmosphere is tense and the people around you could be angry. Heck, you could be angry, but just because the environment is difficult doesn't mean that you have to fall for it. Deal with every moment as it comes and focus on creating order rather than chaos. Taurus. Other people could be in a troublesome state of mind, but you yourself are probably going to be relatively calm, though you do understand that you can create big changes, the kind of changes where no one gets hurt, where the world around you is lifted to new heights. And the change starts with you. A small change of approach can ripple out and transform everything it touches. Relationships are greatly enhanced, and it's all about turning your back on triviality. Gemini. You might feel that you're escaping something, a difficult situation that just wasn't going anywhere. And yes, there is a sense of freedom, and you're finding it easier to think straight. But having escaped one thing, don't fall straight into another. And probably the best place to be, especially at the end of the day, is just in your own home. Cancer. The moon is changing sign from Leo to Virgo. There's the opportunity to meet important people in a relative sense, and you'll find that you can express your thoughts and feelings very well. Yet, in close relationships, it may become apparent that you and your partner have a fundamental difference of opinion. Leo. You know that at some stage financial matters have to be dealt with, but perhaps you're waiting for the last possible moment to sort the matter out. now is probably the time to face the situation. It may not be as bad as you think, and timely action can make things a whole lot better. At work, you may not be able to accomplish as much as you had planned. Virgo, you're responsive to the world around you, in a good and a bad sense. You know what's going on, but you're also sensitive to the physical and emotional atmosphere in such a way that could have a negative impact. Also, one particular person could slow you down in a big way, if you let them. Libra, Venus, your ruling planet, is moving through the last degrees of Virgo. Something is coming to an end, perhaps a period of introspection or a period where you've been analysing yourself too much. But the changeover hasn't quite happened, and there are still some important questions that need to be answered. Scorpio, Mars, your ruler, is square the Sun-Uranus midpoint. In some ways, you're at the centre of a storm, causing change and disruption wherever you go. And perhaps you're too strong, too powerful for your own good. So consider the impact you're having on your environment, and if necessary, tone things down. Sagittarius, there's something or someone getting in your way, or at least they seem to be getting in your way. But if you do your own thing, then I don't think you can really be held back. So have confidence in yourself and don't listen too hard to what other people are saying, unless they really do have your best interests at heart. Capricorn, you know how to spoil the party, or at least bring people down to earth. But are you doing the right thing? Some people are completely deluded and are chasing pointless fantasies, and they need to be told the truth of the matter. But other people are trying to be optimistic without being stupid, and I think they need to be supported and respected. Aquarius, there's lots you want to do, but there's a danger that you take on too much. This is particularly the case in your career. You might focus on the wrong areas or do things that antagonize other people. It's better that you slow down a bit and that you stop following a rigid timeline. Pisces, it's important to be welcoming. People are arriving on the scene and you need to be there for them. And that means thinking carefully about how you're acting and responding. By accident, you could behave in the wrong way and cause offence, or you could not listen to what people are saying. So be sensitive and be kind. Okay, so I now want to look at the I Ching. So, as always, ask the question, what is Monday going to be like for people watching this video? And the hexagram I got was very simple. Hexagram 32, duration, and it doesn't move anywhere. There are no moving lines. So the advice here is just to keep going. Don't pause, but also have respect for yourself. Have respect for your own abilities and your own talents. You know, the talents that are always there, the abilities that are always there. Duration is about looking at ourselves and asking ourselves what is worth continuing with. You know, it's those aspects of our personality, you know, the good aspects of our personality, which have just always been there and always been nurtured. And so that's what we've got to focus on today. It's not a time to be making big changes. You know, particularly this hexagram is not it's not moving anywhere. So that doesn't suggest that a great deal is going to happen. We just have to keep going, keep ploughing away. You know, so you know, if we feel frustrated that we're not getting action, then the answer is just keep working until you've really sorted the thing out, and you really got yourself into a position where you're ready to move to the next level. But I don't think today any of us are really ready to move to any new level. So yeah, yeah, it's about keeping going, but we perhaps have to have in mind the next step. This is hinted perhaps at the nuclear hexagram. You remove the top line, remove the bottom line. It's that thing in the middle, and it's what you've got in the middle. If you take the top three and the bottom three, you have hexagram 43. Hexagram 43 is hexagram 43 is about a breakthrough. About sudden action and perhaps making an effort to escape from a bad situation. So for some of us, it's about developing our character today, building up who we are, but at the same time being aware that there has to be soon, not today, but maybe tomorrow, the next day, whatever, there has to be decisive action, perhaps to remove ourselves from a difficult situation. But anyway, that is not today. Today is about focusing on our personality and our character, building it up, and making ourselves as strong as possible, and just so that we're ready for the next challenge. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about Halloween and why tomorrow, November the 7th, is the astronomical Halloween. So what do I mean by the astronomical Halloween? Well, in the Celtic calendar, you have 4 quarter days. These big Celtic festivals. You might have rituals and that kind of stuff. They are, you've got Imbolc on February the 1st. You've got Beltane on May the 1st. You've got Lugnasak on August 1st, and then you've got Samhain on sort of 31st of October, November the 1st. In other words, Samhain represents sort of Halloween. So, they're called a quarter day. What does that actually mean? Well, it kind of is suggestive that there may be some sort of astronomical roots to this, because these quarter days, they take place halfway between the equinox and the solstice, approximately. So the end of September, we have the autumnal equinox. Autumnal equinox, that's when the hours of day and light are the same, and it's when the sun, at least in the northern hemisphere, it starts to it sort of moves away. The sun moves below the celestial equator, and of course that's the beginning of autumn. And after that, the days get shorter and shorter, and they keep getting shorter and shorter until they reach peak shortness in the northern hemisphere at the winter solstice around December the 21st. So there it is. You've got the autumnal equinox around September the 21st, 22nd. Then you've got the winter solstice, December the 21st, 22nd. And then you've got a halfway point. That halfway point, you could say, is approximately Halloween, October the 31st, but it's only approximate. In fact, that halfway point this year is on November the 7th. And If you're in London, it's at 4:35 p.m. So I can show you that that halfway point. Here it is. So if you think 0 degrees Libra, by definition, is the autumnal equinox. 0 degrees Capricorn, by definition, is the summer solstice. So what's the halfway point between the two? Well, it's going to be at 15 Scorpio. 15 Scorpio, you're 45 degrees from 0 degrees Capricorn, and you're 45 degrees from 0 degrees Libra. So what you do is you take the exact moment the sun gets to 15 degrees 0 minutes Scorpio, and you set up a chart for that time. And that is potentially a magical time. And it's that time, magical time, when we're halfway between the equinox and the solstice. On tomorrow, Tuesday, is at 4:35 p.m. in London, which is 4:35 p.m. in London. As I said, it's 11:35 p.m. in New York. So that is the precise time, and we can set up a chart for that precise time. And that might tell us about the quality of this. And of course, if we see a Halloween as sort of opening the gateway to the hordes of hell, this may be telling us something about the kind of hell we're letting into the universe, or rather, we're letting down here. Well, we're opening up and releasing down here on Earth. Of course, I'm being melodramatic, but so here we have this is the astronomical Halloween set for London. So we might look at this chart to give us an idea about what the next 6 weeks are going to be like. Okay, in the aspect that really strikes me is the fact that you've got Uranus on the Mercury-Mars midpoint at the time of this of the astronomical Halloween. At that precise moment. We've got the astronomical Halloween, and you've got Uranus on the Mercury-Mars midpoint. So, Mercury-Mars is about anger, verbal anger, a lot of shouting. You put Uranus on the Mercury-Mars midpoint, and you get more shouting. People trying to create chaos and stir things up through their words. So I don't know what things are going to be like Westminster in England, but that suggests there's a lot of anger, verbal anger. And it's not just in England, this is Westminster, because if you look at the astrocartography here, let's just have a look at, just do an astro map for Europe, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so this is Europe. And there you can see there's that Uranus on the ascendant in London. But you see, Uranus is actually on the ascendant in Paris. It's on the ascendant in Marseille in France. In fact, there's south of France, you've got Pluto on the midheaven, and you've got Uranus on the ascendant. So that could be an area of real tension. I don't know, maybe Marseille is going to be a dangerous place to be over the astronomical Halloween, and potentially in the next, not just on that day, because when we're talking about the astronomical Halloween, it arguably it lasts for 6 weeks until the winter solstice. So yes, so sort of Western Europe, France, particularly the UK and France, could be quite boiling, angry words all over the place there. So that's something to watch out for. But then you're asking, am I just being ridiculous? Maybe. Am I just, am I being absurd looking at something as obscure as a 45-degree aspect and setting a chart up for when the sun is 45 degrees from the solstice? Isn't that just taking things too far? So what I thought I would do is look at just one historical event. What's an example of a big historical event which should show up in one of these 45-degree charts. So let's take the start of the Second World War, at least from a European perspective. September the 1st, Germany invaded Poland. September the 3rd, 1939. So September the 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. September the 3rd, 1939, Britain and I think France declared war on Germany. So that event, the beginning of the Second World War in Europe, I mean, probably if you're in China, you'd take the view that the Second World War had started a few years earlier. But from a European perspective, early September is when the Second World War started. That September 1st is halfway. Well, it's not. It's more than halfway. But the previous big event was you had the summer solstice, 1939, and then you had the spring, the autumnal equinox, 1939. So then you can actually take the halfway moment. So we can then set this chart up, and here it is. So that precise moment when the sun was halfway between the solstice and the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox in 1939 was August the 8th. That was August the 8th, 1939, and I've set this for Berlin, the capital of the country that started the war. And so I've set this to Berlin, and the precise time was sort of 12:03 in the afternoon, just after noon. So this chart is really quite spectacular if you look at it. So at the time, you can see that at that precise moment, you look at as well as a Saturn-Pluto square, very very close Saturn-Pluto square. So that the energy of Saturn-Pluto square, it's back to this concept of opening the gateway and letting the hordes of hell down here on Earth. Saturn-Pluto is sort of a fairly destructive aspect. The tension builds up, and then it can sort of tear everything apart, structures breaking down. And Saturn, in this chart set for Berlin, Saturn is exactly on the descendant, and so Pluto is exactly square the descendant. So and then Pluto is obviously square the ascendant by definition. Plus, you have got North Node rising, so you can see Saturn conjunct the South Node, opposite and right on the seventh house cusp. Pluto square the North Node. How does Ebertin describe Pluto node? The tragic destiny of a large group of people, or words to that effect. And so Pluto, North Node is on the ascendant. Pluto square that all, and I suppose it's happening at noon. You've got a very sort of strong sun on the midheaven. So, given the power of that chart, I think that's a really powerful chart. I think, you know, it does help explain, you know, what eventually happened. You know, this was August the 9th. What happened, I don't know, 3-4 weeks later, 3.5 weeks later, at the beginning of September. So I would argue, yes, the concept of an astronomical Halloween is certainly valid. Um, and, you know, I understand that, you know, if you're a pagan, Halloween means a lot to you. But, you know, I am an astrologer, and exact times are really important to me. And you know, I just think that Halloween, you know, maybe we need to shift it and you know, get with the astronomy and say move it to November the 7th. You know, that's when we should be dressing up as scary people, Joe Biden, whatever. So that's just a thought. So next year, when you celebrate Halloween, just do it a week later, I would suggest, and you can find, you know, do it on an exact time, because then you can really tune into the full horror of the day. Okay, it needn't be horror, but whatever's going on. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today, and it's just left for me to wish you a happy astronomical Halloween for tomorrow, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thank you for listening.